Hello.
Yeah, can everyone hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, Ravi.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ankita, is there anybody else expected to join?
No, Ravi.
Okay,
Yeah.
just give me one more moment.
Mhm.
Okay, so a very good evening to everyone. This side Rabi, and let before we start, let me give a brief introductions about myself and so I have been into this consulting industry for the past 10 years, and I have worked with multiple implementation projects on PPDS, IBP, plant maintenance, and PP as well. And coming back to the sessions orient, um, we will be having a complete interactive sessions on the PPDS. When I say interactive sessions, it is basically starting from very granular level to deep inside and to completely to the advanced level of the training on PPDS. So it basically starts with understanding the core concepts of PPDS, understanding the setup required for PPDS, understanding the algorithm, the logics of PPDS, and then moving forward with the planning object, scope of plannings, understanding different master data, understanding product view. I mean, within the PPDS itself, we will be having different elements which we'll be covering through the sessions. And so this will also help you to clear out your interviews in case somebody wants to start your career into PPDS. Right, as a freshers also you can start, as an experienced candidate also you can start. So at the end of the sessions I'll be guiding also for the interviews, including some mock interviews and support and interview questionnaires. So before we head on to the content that will be discussing, any questions?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, all right, let me share my screen. All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Mhm.
All right, so coming to the content directly, we will talk about the other things by the time we cover the demo, right? So coming to the topic, first of all, we'll be covering these topics which is on my screen right now, starting from introductions to PPDS, including initial setup and basic configurations, which include understanding the basic system architecture, system requirement, and how do we activate the PPDS. So for PPDS, we need a live cache. Live cache is basically nothing but a core component of your infrastructure. So your basis consultant will activate the live cache. You might be already knowing about something called as cache memory in your laptop, in your desktop. Every device is having a cache memory. Higher the cache memory, faster the process. The same way in PPDCS also, we will have a cache memory, which is called as a live cache, and all the complex calculations, all complex planning activities happens and runs within the live cache. And that's why it processes the informations quickly and in a more faster way. So how do we activate the live cache, and how do you analyze after activating the live cache? I mean, before activating the live cache itself, there are a couple of configurations, couple of setups that basis has to take care. We will cover all those things from functional perspective. As I said, it's a basis activity, but still from functional perspective, we have a couple of points which we have to keep an eye on, right? So that if something goes wrong, we can fix it. Now, once the live caches are activated, configuring your systems to run your process to the live cache has to be done, which is nothing but the BT indicator and then queue management, and you have to establish a RFC connection. So this RFC connection is something which is again will be done by your basis, but at the same time, this has to be routed to your live cache, which will be done by the PPDS consultant itself. So we will first talk about the basic initial setups, basic configurations for PPDS, which is required to run the process. And once the basic is done, we will explore the master data. So different type of master data available within PPDS. When we talk about ePPDS, all the master data are directly linked with S4. So we don't create any one of the master data except PDS and transportation lane separately within PPDS, meaning that we have location master, we have product master, resource master. Location master is nothing but your location of the manufacturing site or distribution center or shipping point. It's basically the location, right? So in S4 system, it is the plant. So location master, product master, resource master, these are something which has to be generated from S4 side, and then it has to be sent to PPDS. Right? So I hope you guys understand the difference between ePPDS and PPDS only. So ePPDS is nothing but embedded PPDS, right? In your APO, we have four component. One is PPDS. APO used to be a separate module, advanced planning and optimizations, it stands for. Then we have DP, we have SNP, and we have GATP, right? So PPDS is production planning and detailed scheduling, DP is demand planning, SNP is supply network planning, and GATP is global available to promise. Now, out of this four component of APO, since APO is going to sunset in next couple of years, PPDS and GATP is moved to S4 HANA site, and DP and SNP is moved to IBP site. Okay, this DP and SNP has gone to IBP. PPDS and GATP has gone to S4HANA. In S4HANA, now we don't call it as a GATP, but it is now called as a AATP, Advanced Available to Promise, which is primarily an integration between your supply chain and sales side. Now, when we talk about ePPDS, we refer to the component of PPDS in APO. So APO used to be a separate system. When APO used to be a separate system and standalone system, all these master data is something which can be created in APO separately, right? By taking the master data from your ERP system. When you say ERP, it could be ECC 6.0, ECC EHP 7.0 or 8.0, or it can be any other cloud infrastructure which is based out of S4HANA architecture also. But when we talk about ePPDS, there is nothing like manual creation of data except transportation lane and product data structure. So all other informations are being sent from S4 it will be sent to ePPDS. So why it is required for us to understand the master data first once we understand or finish the basic configurations? Because master data is the key to drive any sort of transactions in the system. So for PPDS perspective, what all are the transactions then? As the name itself is saying, production planning and detailed scheduling, right? So we can do a quantity planning, we can do a quality planning, we can do a scheduling and resolve complex planning issues. That's why PPDS is used for, right? So it has two components basically, PPDS. One is PP, one is DS. PP stands for production planning, where we plan for quantities. Okay, it is majorly product driven planning. It is majorly product driven planning. And DS stands for detailed scheduling, which is usually used for scheduling or sequencing and solving planning issues. Okay, and DS is something resource driven planning. So this is nothing but resource driven planning. PP is product driven planning, DS is resource driven planning. Now within resource driven planning, we have different objects that will be covering up once the session starts, right? But coming back to the demo, we were talking about the master data. Now in order to understand how a product driven planning works, how a resource driven planning works, within resource driven planning, what all are other parameters through which we can carry out sequencing or we can do the scheduling, right? So for that, your resource master data, which is again a master data for PPDS, has to have in the system. That's mandatory in the system. That's why we'll focus first on the master data. Once we understood the master data, we will be covering the different other component of PPDS, like product view, DS board. So product view and DS board, these are the different tools through which individual planning and global planning can be carried out. So when I say individual planning, one by one product planning, right? So primarily the product driven planning from the PP side is something which we do with the product view. Within the product view, we have different parameter, we have different algorithm, we have different settings in the systems to support us in achieving the planning goals. Once we understand product view, the next would be receipt view and detailed scheduling board. So all the subtopics are mentioned here. Based on these topics, we will be covering one by one. For an example, how PPDS parameters works, how AP order works, how work area works, what is propagation range, what strategy profile, how it works, and then what's planning board chart, resource chart, product chart, or operations chart. So we go to understand these informations first, because this is the very first level of planning granularity that somebody can have. Once we are done with product view and detailed scheduling board, where we will be understanding the basic how PPDS works, what all are the different possibilities with PPDS, we will be jumping into the advanced topics like finance scheduling with manual adjustment. So finance scheduling is something that most of the PP consultant already know. It's nothing but the capacity planning. When you have resources, your resources are completely running based on your available capacities, and you have your products which is running on the production line, and you want to optimize your product line with the help of capacity planning. That's where we use the finite scheduling, right? Basically it's minute by minute planning based on your available capacity on your resources. You will be planning your products. So how do we do finite scheduling within PPDS, and how do we do manual adjustments? That will be covering up. And then we'll be talking about the block planning. Block planning is a kind, as the name itself is saying, block planning, right? So it's a block. Basically in the planning board, we will be having different block. For an example, this is going to one block, and then another block for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Based on the scheduling, we'll be having different blocks, and based on those blocks, your products will be scheduled. So for an example, you want to schedule a product on this yellow block, which is for 1 week, for green block for 1 week another product, and for the 4 week you want to schedule another product. How do you do that in the systems, in the automobile industry or in the pharmaceutical industry, they use this kind of plannings very much. So in the automobile industry, if you go, they are doing the paintings, isn't it? So they might be painting a white car or yellow car or a red car, right? So when they plan something, they just not randomly go and paint everything in one day, like on the same day, red, yellow, blue. No, it's not like that. Instead, they go with block by block. So all yellow color cars which requires scheduling, that will be placed on 1 week, whatever is the timeline. It could be 4 day, 5 day, depending on the industry requirement, or it can be for a couple of hours also. So all your white cars will be fall on that bucket. All your white cars which could be scheduled on other days will be pulled back and put into one schedule, so that you will can use maximize, or you can utilize maximum potential of your resources. Because if you will be having multiple color combinations, by the time you do your setups for different operations, like for red color, you may require a different setup, for green color you may require a different setup, or for other color you might a different setup. So if you frequently keep on changing your product, you will be having more setups, which technically in the system we call it as a changeover. More changeover, more loss of capacities. To optimize that, we use block planning, and also we use planning with alternate resource. It's similar, quite similar to block planning, but it's little different than or block planning. In block planning we'll be having blocks. In alternate resource scheduling we'll be having a alternate resource, meaning alternate machinery equipment. So one resource is occupied with some load, or it's already having its bottleneck situations, then the load will be shifted to another resource or another machine or another equipment. So how that happens, what are the master data required for that, like resource classification, task list classification, mode selections, and then how do you evaluate your alternate resource planning, and how do you schedule it, that will be covered with the help of the master data. And sorry, anyone want to say something? I could hear some. Okay, all right, now let me go back to the schedule again. So we're talking about the alternate resource, right? So we'll be covering up these subtopics for alternate resource scheduling, where the resource classification, task list classification requires some of the master data, which will be already covered here in the master data sessions. And then based on those master data, there will be some additional parameters which has to be maintained. And then there are standard heuristics and planning objects available in the system that support alternate resource scheduling. Depending on the need, depending on the requirement, it can be fully customized. Now I use the term heuristic. Heuristic is nothing but an algorithm. So there are multiple heuristics available, more than 100 heuristics available in the system for different requirement, for different purposes. Heuristic, as I said, it is nothing but the algorithm. So every heuristic has two parameters. One is called as a function module is available, and some logical parameters, or we can call it as a planning parameters. So these planning parameters are something which can be modified or tuned as per the requirement. And based on the planning parameters maintenance activity that you do, your function module, which is nothing but a regularly used program in the system or frequently used program in the system, will be capturing those parameter and solve your planning proposals. For an example, you want to remove all the backlogs from your system. So your machine or equipment are already running in line with the current date, but in the system, in the PPDS systems, your resources are showing that your loads are running in the back dates and you want to correct it. So we have heuristics available called as reduce or remove backlogs. Run that heuristic, system will remove everything from the past date and it will pull it everything to the current date. Similarly, there are heuristics available called as schedule stable forward scheduling. I'm sorry, it is called a stable forward scheduling, right? So when you do forwards planning in the system, sometime depending on the material availability or capacity availability, we often see that um, depending on the material or capacity availability, you might have to break down your production in the sense, like, activities, production activities, by few days or few minutes. You don't have materials, you have to stop it today. You don't have capacity, you have to stop it today. So we have a heuristics called a stable forward scheduling that is very helpful to identify these kind of potential situations, to trigger future notifications, so that your planner, your procurement officers can use those notifications to get the required materials and resolve the problems that can hinder the production activities. So up to this much, you will be having the complete understanding about how PPDS systems usually work within the S4 system. Now, apart from the functionalities, apart from the standard planning objects, there are some of the advanced topics we'll be covering, like alert monitoring. As the name itself is saying, alerts is nothing but it's a kind of mechanism in the systems that notify the planning persons of any system issues. So there are multiple type of notifications available. One is called as database related issues or planning related issues. Sometime you may get database failures or database related other issues where some packing proposals or some other order proposals are not stored in the system. So system can generate some notifications through the alert monitoring engine. What kind of notifications? So we have a transaction code in the system called as /n/SAP APO /amon1. Okay, so for PPDS, you have to keep in one thing in your mind, that you have to use this acronym all the time, /n/SAP APO. So this will take you to the APO side of transactions, right? Similarly, for an example, if you want to do a live cache analysis, we have a transaction code available called as OM13 and OM17. So instead adding the SAP APO acronym or SAP APO namespace, if you directly type OM17 or OM13, system is going to take you to the S4 side of configurations. So give me a moment. Let me show you something in the system right away. I think, I'm sorry. All right. So for an example, without adding any transaction like acronym called as SAP APO, if I simply type OM17 or OM13, so what it does is it takes me to the stock transfer control profile, which is basically a parameter that we maintain in the system, like S4 system or ERP system side. But if I execute the same transaction code OM13 with the acronym, then it is going to take me to the APO side of or PPDS side of transactions. So you have to add this /n/SAP APO / your transaction code. So you have to keep it in mind all the time. So this take me to the transaction code for live cache analysis, and usually this live cache analysis is done by a functional consultant or sometime by the basis consultant also, to identify the potential issues with the PPDS system. So currently you could see we don't have the live cache initializations with the server right now. So you could see it says 401, it says red. Okay, red means it's not yet sorted, meaning you cannot run PPDs on this server. So going forward with our sessions, we will be preparing a system from the scratch, where we will be understanding the infrastructure requirement, and from PPDS side, how and what all configurations that is necessary in order to start the system. Once you start the system, there are other configurations that you have to keep in place, like heuristic customizations, planning profile, strategy profile, other configurations that we do normally with other work streams, mmp, pqm. The way we do that same kind of activities also in PPDS we do. But before you start with PPDS, we have to keep one thing in mind, that live cache is our basic requirement. If live cache is not there, there is no point. So now let me jump back to the topic that we are covering on alerts. So we have the transaction called as /SAP APO M1. Using M1, we can have a overview of the different type of alerts that is already set up in the system. So you have to prepare the alert profile first, and you have to arrange the background notification settings. Once it is done, we do the alert evaluations using SAP APO M1, through which system can show us the potential issues or potential risk to the supply chain network, which can be resolved with the appropriate actions. Also, system can send alert intimations through workflow, through email, or maybe a inbox message to different persons that can be notified. We'll also talk about one of the advanced topic called as self-life planning. Self-life planning is very widely used in the pharmaceutical industries. So what it means is, basically, for an example, you have a batch which is going to expire in 3 months, and you have a customer requirement. Your customer is saying, you got a customer order, and they are saying, we need product with minimum 1 year of shelf life. We need product with 1 year of shelf life. Okay. So in standard PP system or standard ERP system or ECC system, we don't have any such functionalities where you can look into your shelf life and plan your product. So in this case, I have a batch which is having a 3 months. Say for example, batch X, which is having 3 months from today's date. So in standard PP system, we don't have any such planning object which can consider this value and plan it accordingly. So this is having 3 months, which is not fitting into my requirement. Let me not take it, but let me search for another batch which is available for 1 year criteria. So this kind of functionalities available within SAP, which will be looking for self-life planning. We have different systems, different setups that we have to carry out. Then also we have a couple of master data that we have to maintain in the system, some configurations, some master data, and some heuristics. In PPDS, there are 3 things very common. One thing, your configurations are set up. Okay. So these 3 things, if somebody understand these 3 things, he or she can resolve any planning issues. In PPDS, any planning results can be achieved with the help of these 3 things: setup, required master data, and appropriate heuristic. And then there will be one more session, probably like 2 hours of sessions there, 2 to 3 hours to be accurate, on the optimizations. When I say optimizations, the name itself is saying optimize, right? It means maximize your outputs. So concepts of optimizations is basically maximizing your output by eliminating the hindrance item. So when I say hindrance item, it could be multiple setups, it could be some costing issues, it could be some labor issues or machine equipment breakdown issues. So how to analyze those issues, how to avoid those issues, and what all are the different setup required, what all are the different master data required, which heuristics has to be run, and without heuristics, is optimization possible? Yes, without heuristics also optimization possible. For that, we got to activate the SCM optimization server, which is pre-built within the S4 system, meaning that you don't need to take a separate license, separate infrastructure. Earlier with APO, it used to be separate. When I was talking about the APO platform, within PPDS, if you want to use the optimizations, you go to take the SCM optimization server separately, you go to activate it separately, and you go to take a separate license for that. But now it is embedded and there is no separate licensing. So companies with S4HANA PPDS are going with optimizations because it's one of the most efficient engine to maximize your outputs. And the total number of hours for PPDS sessions here, it is mentioned as 18, but in actual it is going to take around 30 hours of sessions. So this 2 hour for an example given for optimizations is basically for the advanced level of candidates who already understand PPDS to a certain extent. For them it's going to take 2 hours. But if we start from very granular level, and the approach of the training is to start from the granular level, from scratch to the advanced level of training, right? So for that it's gonna take around 4 to 5 years of sessions to understand optimizations thoroughly. Same goes with self-life planning. Minimum it's gonna take 2 hours for people who already know a bit of PPDS, but we will start it from the scratch, so it's gonna take close to 3 to 4 hours. So in total it's gonna take around 30 hours of sessions. And there is one topic also missing here, which is nothing but it is called as a within PPDS we have something called as continuous planning object or campaign planning. That is called as a campaign planning. Campaign planning is something which is continuous in nature, and it is widely used in automobile industry, food processing industry, pharmaceutical industry. So they run campaign. It is similar to block planning situations where you run your product for a particular period of time. But campaign planning is little different. It is similar, but it is little different. Why? Because campaign planning is one of the object where we run campaign for a certain period of time, and within that campaign period you can add or subtract any campaign parameters, any orders, any planning objects into the system, and subtract it also from the system, or dissolve it. In technical language we call it as a dissolve it from the campaign object or campaign window, so that if you don't need something, you can dissolve it basically. So this is one of the topic also which we are going to cover with this topics. Any questions?
Ravi, I want to ask few questions over here. When you are saying resource master, are you talking about work center master, which we are maintaining in production planning?
Yes, resource master is basically one of the key master data within PPDS, and it is directly related to your work center. So from work center, obviously you have to activate a couple of settings. You have to activate some configurations. So if I go to the work center, for example, with CR01, right, I try to create a work center, say demo work center.
That is perfectly fine. Yeah.
So we have this advanced
Yeah.
planning flag. When we activate this
Right.
advanced planning flag, it creates the resources in the backend. But in order to enable for us to create the resource in the backend, we have to take care about system configurations and setups. And for this system which I'm presenting right now, as I said, it's completely a newly built 2023 system. 2023 server, right? So we saw that live cache is not yet enabled. Once live cache is enabled, which we will do itself in the sessions, it will allow us to create the master data. Same goes with product master, same goes with other master data like location master also.
Okay. Can you go back to your Excel worksheet one more time?
Sure.
Yeah. You are saying you are going to give 2 hours for heuristic, right? Can you go to the heuristic? Okay, so do you think so? Within 2 hours, you can cover at least 10 over heuristics.
No, that's what I said. These 2 hours is primarily for the peoples who are already trained in SAP PPDS. I mean, they understand the granularity, right? In actual, it's going to take around 5 hours of sessions for each of the topic. Where it is mentioned as a 1 hour, it's going to take 2 to 3 hours. Where it is mentioned as a 2 hour, it's going to take 4 to 5 hours.
And I could not see this demand-driven MRP anywhere in this whole discussion.
So demand-driven planning, which we call it as a DDR in otherwise, right? So it's not a part of PPDS. It's a separate functionality which is covered. This demand-driven planning is basically invented by a institute called a Demand-Driven Institute, DDI. Okay, they are the owner of demand-driven planning or DDMRP. In otherwise, we call it as a DDMRP. So SAP is just using its functionality. SAP has developed a tool. It's not SAP's product. Like MRP is a SAP product, DDR is not, or DDMRP is not SAP product. It's just a tool. It is already available in Oracle. It is available in Sybase and in other ERPs also, like Odoo ERP, right? So it is already available with that. And it's not a part of PPDS. It's a separate functionality. Like you have PMRP. I hope you know PMRP. I mean, you might have heard about this term, right? PMRP, predictive MRP. That same way we have DDMRP, demand driven replenishment, or DDMRP. PMRP, DDMRP, these are the new innovations S4 HANA gave, and it's not a part of PPDS. It's different than PPDS. Within PP, these two tools comes in.
Okay. So I'm done from my side. I will definitely get back to Ankita. Yeah. Thanks. The presentation was really good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Thank you.